The art of advanced rocketry is split into 3 steps. Making a base to build and launch rockets, sending a space station into orbit, and unlocking interstellar travel. Along the way there will be a few interesting features in outer space to explore. But if not done correctly, everything will go preposterously wrong. And it all begins here. After giving birth to my first tools, I went underground to kidnap some scrumptious resources ranging from copper to titanium. And I decided to not come out until I was extraordinarily put to credit. After getting an acceptable amount of overworld materials, I took a business vacation to the Nether to get even more substances and cook all my raw materials into decrepitated necessaries. Now that I had enough basic materials to last a while, I am going to begin industrializing. Upon reappearing into the overworld, I chose this base spot. Not only is this flat enough for capitalism, it also has human resources, and I claimed this area as my own. I then made a generator making power from coal, which powers these simple machines that make metal plates and delicious powder. The foundation of all things capitalism. Now for the easy part. Making all these machines. I had to go all in to make them. The electric blast furnace, crystallizer, cutting machine, and precision assembler all go towards making circuits, which will be needed for chemistry. I assembled the electrolyzer and chemical reactor, which can turn 1 bucket of water into 20 buckets of rocket fuel. Notable mention: the rolling machine makes rocket parts, but that was probably not important, I think. Now that the easy part was done, it is time for the moment you have all been waiting for. Building a rocket launch area, and the rocket itself. The launch pad came at a price of 128 quid, but the real challenge is finding a good position for a launch site. A logical person would say to place it on this flat area. But that would mean I have to build a rocket from scratch on top of it. Just southeast of me were pre-built structures that could be transmogrified into rockets. So if we do the math, that means I don't have to build my own rocket, thus saving more shekels. I replaced the ground under the village with launch pads, and placed rocket guidance computers, rocket thrusters, and fuel tanks around the villagers' property to convert it into something suitable for interplanetary travel. Now for the rocket building machine, which will scan and analyze the rocket. And the examination shows that the rocket was too heavy to escape Earth's gravity. So instead of removing some weight, I added 3 times more rocket engines. Bigger is better. But this is egregiously ineffectual. Spreading them out gives more thrust. To balance this out, I had to add slightly more fuel tanks. Now it is time to combine everything on top of the launch pad into a single rocket ship. Behold, the Apollo 53 uncountable infinity rocket. After fueling it, creating a spacesuit and filling that as well with oxygen, and sitting down on the village, I hit launch, and soon enough, I was going nowhere. There was a giant dust storm covering the rocket, but I thought nothing went wrong. But as it turns out, something was wrong. The top part of the fuel tanks were not built into the rocket because the structure tower was not tall enough. So the floating fuel tanks blocked the rocket from going upwards. This was an utter failure. After fixing the mistake and getting more fuel, I was soon shooting into outer space unprotected from gargantuan amounts of air friction on my skull. But dying is only optional. I was on my way to the moon. After safely landing at 300 miles per hour, I analyzed the current situation. The village rocket was perfectly unscathed. And I will take note of where I landed. I am on the moon to acquire the tangibles known as dilithium, a rare moon crystal needed for interstellar travel. Since it was quite hard to find, I used my naturally excellent vision to find dilithium legitimately. The plot twist is that there is no dilithium here, and that it could be found on Earth this whole time. So that was quite awkward. After my face was burnt off on the way down to Earth, I drunkenly wandered off the rocket and noticed something strange. My calculations for landing the rocket were a bit off, leading to me waking up several people at night. But the grind stops for nobody. I went into the mines and got an unnecessarily Falstaffian amount of dilithium, and returned to base to create my space station. To do this, I used dilithium to assemble the space station assembler. Now it is possible to make a grandiloquent eloquent space station. But that was unnecessary. I converted this singular dirt block into my space station. Next I shaved this house to bring my rocket down, but it was too lazy to obey gravity. So I had to make the rocket jump and fall back down. Finally I could add a satellite bay and load the space station into it. I then deployed the dirt into outer space along with myself. After setting the destination to my space station, I landed safely onto the surprisingly strong dirt. I took one big look around. For some reason I could hear birds out in outer space. Life finds a way. Anyways, time to get back on task. With me I brought along a power generator, supplies, building materials, portable humans, machines from my factory, spare resources, space station tools, and the warp core for interstellar travel. All of which will be used to transform this dirt block into an interstellar space colony while I travel around the galaxy and explore extraterrestrial planets. This is the part where so much could go wrong. And I have already failed. This rocket was getting in the way of me building anything, so I had to disassemble it, leading to it losing all its fuel. I turned this area into a new rocket building zone, and began expanding the station. The first thing I built was a power source and an oxygen supply since I would be here a while. Then I created the warp core and dumped all my dilithium into it. Not only is this capable of bringing this village to light speed, I can use it to view the map of the solar system and select my destination. But since the normal solar system was comparatively nondescript, I generated a solar system with 200 planets. Now everything is a flat 2D animated circle phasing through each other, creating a labyrinthine abomination. The year on Sol 64 was only 1 minute long. Earth blended in with 30 of its clones. And the space station is currently crashing into 3 planets at once. I had to relocate immediately. I decided to warp to Sol 351, a frozen terrestrial planet on the edge of the solar system. Now that I am no longer violating physics, it is time to set up the space colony. The plan is to make something that surpasses all efficiency and aesthetic. And what better space station than a giant glass trigonal trapezohedron? The view here was exceedingly sensational. But this empty box was currently incompatible with life. According to jurisprudence of reality, humans need 4 threes to survive, and the most important 3 was oxygen. So I set up an oxygen vent and carbon dioxide filter, and made an airlock between the base and rocket so that air could not escape. But as it turns out, human cells apparently don't want oxygen as long as carbon dioxide was being filtered. So now it is time to unleash the villagers in their new permanent country. They seemed to be very excited. The next needs to satisfy were sogginess and comestibles. So I placed down some farmland, planted edible objects, and turned the remaining space into a drinkable Olympic swimming pool. The last thing missing from the 4 threes of survival is heating. So I placed some lava to warm up the general vicinity. Now that all the survival needs have been satisfied, there is no way for the villagers to die. And I can now finally focus on luxuries such as experimenting with these space station tools I mentioned 95 seconds ago. I placed them in my private area above these peasant villagers. From here I can ameliorate the altitude and rotation of the station to whatever was the most convenient for everyone. Now it seemed that the station didn't orbit the planet. The planet orbited the station. This is so deep. So the next thing to explore is the planet that is currently orbiting me. I exited the airlock, rebuilt and refueled the rocket, and blasted upwards to go downwards onto the frozen planet. But all expectations have been shattered. This frozen planet had warm jungles and even an atmosphere I could survive in. I had to enslave some of the life forms here to upload to YouTube and prove scientists wrong. I returned to the space station with a burning sense of curiosity. There had to be an explanation behind this major vouchsafing. So the search for life continues. I returned into the glass cube to select my new destination, Saturn. Since Saturn is made out of gas, attempting to land on it will lead to being triturated and annihilated by its atmosphere. So that was a catastrophic idea. I switched from plan B to no plan. I shall visit the complete opposite of Sol 351, Sol 64. A planet with a 1-minute orbit time, meaning that it is orbiting inside the Sun. When I arrived, I saw that Sol 64 and the Sun obviously had something delinquent with it. But I must prove that I am the Omicron male compared to Sol 64. Upon landing, I could immediately tell that this was a mistake. The Sun was as big as a Trans-Canada highway, and Sol 64 had more volcanoes in 1 square mile than the entire Earth. Despite all this, grass was growing everywhere. That was until the sunrise occurred. The sky was almost instantly filled with incontrovertible light, and the whole continent burst into an unstoppable inferno. I was spared since I cannot die without my consent. I decided to get a better view of the chaos by climbing this thin magma chasm. From here, the view was hideous. I was circumambiented by desert, lava, and calming nature. But above me, was a more deadly version of lava. Enriched lava. Perfect for collecting some souvenirs to remember this planet, which triggered a lava snowslide. Due to this I had to get out of here as medium as possible. After this trip I decided that the solar system was a lost cause. Luckily there are other planetary systems that can be accessed by the warp core. A feat thought impossible by those who came before me, but I came during me. I traveled across the galaxy to the HD 42176 system, and flew to Kel-2b, which appeared to be a planet friendly to life. But as it turns out, Kel-2b had lied and manipulated me with its planetary camouflage, because its true colors were ice. But that truth was also a lie, because underneath the frozen ocean was a tropical coral reef. Suddenly I had an epiphany. I realized that the secret behind life somehow being on these planets, is that these planets were subscribed to me. Please like and subscribe for more implausible enterprise videos. Anyways, back to the video. So far I have collected several samples of life on other planets. And what better way to use them, than to put them in my alien life display. Over the past few days I have been talking to this wood, the dirt, and the lava. As it turns out, they have names, personalities, and life aspirations. This is truly inspiring. But I spent so much time talking to inanimate objects, that I failed to notice that 5 of my real colonists somehow died of semi-natural causes. How did this happen? That was a rhetorical question to show my astonishment. I placed down graves to remember those lost in the mass extinction. I don't even remember who died. And I placed 7 tombs for 5 people to show how extremely sad this was. After doing the math, it seems that only 3 villagers remain. So I am initiating emergency protocol H, doing a Google search to preclude my quandary. In this case, how to repopulate villagers. After doing a bit of analysis, I discovered a psychological trick. By placing numerous stores on top and surrounding the villagers, they fall under the illusion that they are in a village, therefore making them horny and making them making babies. Behold, the first baby born in space. He stared around in wonder at his surroundings, but this was no place to raise a baby though. Everyone else had perished from the museum incident, and there was no point in exploring the galaxy further. I had to return to Earth. That was when I realized I was out of dilithium. The warp core was now useless, leaving me stranded light years from base. Unless the planet below me had dilithium. There is only one way to find out. I set the rocket to fly to Kelt-3. But the rocket appeared to be stuck. That was when I remembered that I attempted to build the village above the station, which led to the rocket being trapped under this glass beam. I tried to break off the tip of the glass, but I forgot one crucial fact. Glass is fragile. Immediately after doing this, the entire glass box colony shattered into subatomic particles, and the contents of the colony burst outside. Oxygen, water and lava all exploded outwards. To the pleasant surprise of absolutely nobody because everyone else died and is therefore incapable of feeling emotion, everyone died. And all the water, lava, and enriched lava was dumped onto the rapidly moving planet. While all of this was happening, the rocket was now freed, but I forgot to turn it off when I broke the glass. allowing it to blast off to Kelt 3 without me, leaving me rocketless. This was the most worst and egregiousest mistake made in mankind. But that was a slight inconvenience compared to the fact that there is no conceivable way of getting home. It appears that this is the end of my interstellar journey. Overall, this mod is quite broken, which is why I rate it a 10 out of 10. This is not sponsored. And thank you to the channel members. And watch my other stuff.